stop trying to win? Thoreau says losers are happier. What if I told you that everything you've been taught about success, about winning, achieving, and being the best is an illusion? That the very thing you chase is designed to keep you running, never arriving? That the obsession with winning might be the very thing that's making you miserable? Henry David Thoreau, the 19th century transcendentalist, spent much of his life questioning society's values. He asked, why do we glorify competition? Why do we spend our lives in pursuit of things that never truly satisfy us? He famously said, the mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation, but what if the real reason for that desperation isn't failure but success? Think about it. From the moment we're born, we're conditioned to believe that life is a ladder. We climb from one stage to another: school, career, relationships, wealth, always trying to get to the next level. We idolize those at the top, the billionaires, the champions, the record breakers. We assume that if we just win enough, win promotions, win respect, win admiration, we will finally be happy. But look around. Are the so-called winners actually happy? Studies show that once people reach a certain level of wealth, additional money does little to increase happiness. Many of the world's most successful people, from celebrities to CEOs, openly struggle with depression, anxiety, and a sense of emptiness. Why? Because winning isn't the answer, it's the trap. Here's the paradox: the more we win, the more we fear losing. The higher we climb, the more fragile our position becomes. The pursuit of success turns into a treadmill that never stops. And worst of all, we start defining ourselves by our wins and losses, as if our worth is measured by external achievements rather than internal fulfillment. But what if we stopped playing the game altogether? What if happiness isn't about winning but about stepping off the treadmill entirely? What if, as Thoreau suggested, true joy comes not from achievement but from simplicity, from presence, from embracing life as it is rather than as a competition to be won? Here's a thought experiment. Imagine waking up tomorrow and deciding that you no longer care about winning. You no longer need to prove yourself. You no longer measure your life by trophies, salaries, or social status. What would change? Would you feel free, or would you feel lost? And if the idea of losing your competitive edge scares you, why? What exactly are you afraid of? That you won't be valuable anymore? That without external validation, you'll be nothing? This fear exposes the truth: we don't chase success because it makes us happy. We chase it because we're afraid of what happens if we stop. But Thoreau offers a different path. He walked away from the pressures of society and found joy in the simplest things: the sound of the wind, the ripples on Walden Pond, the freedom of living without the need to impress anyone. He discovered that the so-called losers, those who rejected society's obsession with winning, were often the ones who were truly alive. So let me ask you, what if losing is actually the key to happiness? Think about that for a moment, and if that idea makes you uncomfortable, good, because the next part is going to challenge everything you think you know about success.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
The freedom of letting go: why winners are trapped and losers are free if winning is the answer. Why does it never feel like enough? Why do the most accomplished people, those who, by all accounts, have made it, still feel restless, anxious, and unfulfilled? The truth is that winners are not free. They are trapped by their own success, weighed down by expectations, enslaved by the very thing they thought would liberate them. Imagine a world-class athlete at the peak of their career. They've trained for years, sacrificed everything, and finally stand victorious. But what happens the next morning? The world doesn't stop. The applause fades. The record they set will eventually be broken. And now, they are left with a terrifying realization: the only thing harder than winning is maintaining the illusion that you can keep winning forever. The moment they stop, the moment they slip even slightly, the world will move on without them. They are no longer just competing against others, they are competing against their past selves, their own legacy, their own fear of becoming irrelevant. This is the cruel irony of success. It promises freedom but delivers chains. The higher you climb, the less room you have to breathe. The more you win, the more you must defend your position. And so winning becomes not a moment of triumph, but a lifelong sentence of never being allowed to rest. But what about those who never enter the race to begin with? What about those who, like Thoreau, choose to step away from the endless pursuit of more? Society calls them losers, but are they? Or have they simply seen the game for what it is, a hollow race with no finish line? Thoreau's decision to live in the woods was not an escape, it was an experiment. He wanted to know what would happen if he stripped life down to its essentials. If he removed ambition, competition, and status, would he still find meaning? And the answer was yes. In fact, he found more meaning than ever before. Because when you stop chasing, you start noticing. You notice the beauty in ordinary things, the way the sunlight filters through the trees, the quiet rhythm of the seasons, the deep satisfaction of simply being alive without needing to prove anything. Contrast that with the mindset of a winner, someone always looking ahead, always focused on the next goal, always measuring life in terms of progress and achievement. They might glance at the sunset, but do they truly see it? Or is it just another moment passing by on the way to something bigger, something better, something more? It's a strange paradox. The people who seem to have the least, those who reject the pursuit of wealth, fame, and power, often seem the most content. They don't fear losing because they never bought into the illusion that there was something to win in the first place. They don't suffer from the anxiety of maintaining an image because they never built one to begin with. They are free in a way that winners will never be. But here's where it gets even more interesting. The moment you stop trying to win, something unexpected happens. You start to experience life differently. Conversations become deeper because you're no longer trying to impress. Creativity flourishes because you're no longer seeking validation. Relationships become more meaningful because you're not using them as stepping stones. And most of all, you begin to understand that happiness was never something to be earned, it was always right here, waiting for you to notice it. Think about your own life for a moment. How much of your daily stress comes from the pressure to achieve, to prove, to keep up? How much of your identity is wrapped up in external success? And what would happen if, just for a moment, you let go? Not in a way that means giving up on life, but in a way that means surrendering the illusion that winning is the only goal. Thoreau's lesson is not that ambition is bad, it's that blind ambition is a prison. The key is not to stop striving, but to strive for the right things. Instead of chasing status, chase experiences. Instead of accumulating trophies, accumulate wisdom. Instead of trying to win, try to live. Because in the end, the people who are happiest are not the ones who reach the top, but the ones who realize they never needed to climb at all. And that brings us to the next question, the one that might change everything for you. If you stopped trying to win, what would you do with your life? The myth of progress, why chasing more leaves us with less. We are told that life is about progress, that every year, every step, every decision should move us forward toward more success, more wealth, more recognition, more security. We are told that if we are not advancing, we are falling behind. So we push, we strive, we measure ourselves against others, convinced that happiness lies just beyond the next milestone. But what if this entire idea, this belief that more is always better, is an illusion? What if progress, as we define it, is actually making us less fulfilled, not more? Thoreau saw this trap clearly. He saw people working themselves to exhaustion to afford luxuries they barely had time to enjoy. He saw men building bigger houses, not realizing they had become prisoners of their own possessions. He saw the relentless pursuit of wealth turning people into slaves not to a master, but to their own desires. And he asked the question that shatters the illusion, what is the point of all this effort if it does not make us truly alive? Think about your own life. How much of your energy is spent chasing things you don't truly need? How many hours are given away to jobs that drain you, just so you can afford things that bring only fleeting satisfaction? We tell ourselves that once we reach a certain level, once we have the perfect job, the perfect house, the perfect life, then we can finally rest. But rest never comes, because the moment we reach one goal, another appears. The moment we acquire one thing, we crave something else. This is why so many people who seem to have everything still feel empty. They have followed the script, perfectly worked hard, achieved success, accumulated wealth, but something is missing. Because they have spent their lives climbing a ladder without ever stopping to ask, is this even the right ladder? Thoreau's answer was radical. He believed that instead of always reaching for more, we should seek less. Instead of expanding, we should simplify. He went to the woods not to escape life, but to find it to strip away everything unnecessary until only the essential remained. And what he discovered is something we all sense but rarely admit: happiness is not found in accumulation. It is found in presence. Imagine, for a moment, that you had nothing to prove, that you no longer measured your worth by your achievements, but that you no longer compared yourself to others. What would your life look like? Would you still chase the same goals? Would you still work the same job? Would you still spend your time the same way? Or would you finally allow yourself to slow down, to breathe, to focus on what truly matters? Society teaches us to fear stillness. It tells us that if we are not constantly improving, we are wasting time. But what if the real waste is spending decades chasing things that never bring us peace? What if the real failure is never stopping long enough to appreciate what we already have? There is a reason why some of the happiest people in the world are not the richest, not the most famous, not the most accomplished, but the ones who have learned to be content with less. They are not weighed down by the endless pursuit of more. They are not trapped by the fear of falling behind. They have stepped out of the race entirely and found something far more valuable: freedom. And here's the most surprising part: when you stop obsessing over progress, when you stop needing to win, life doesn't stop. It opens up. You begin to notice the moments you once rushed past. You begin to appreciate the beauty in simplicity. You begin to realize that the things you were chasing were never the source of happiness to begin with. So ask yourself, what would happen if you stopped believing that success is the answer? What if, instead of striving for more, you learned to love what already is? Would your life fall apart, or would it finally begin? The art of losing: how surrender leads to true freedom. We spend our lives resisting loss. We fear it, fight it, do everything in our power to avoid it. Losing a job, losing status, losing time, losing relevance, these are the things we are taught to dread, the things that society tells us define failure. But what if losing is not the end, but the beginning? What if, instead of destruction, loss offers us the greatest opportunity for transformation? Thoreau understood something that most people never realize: that in losing what the world deems important, we often find what truly matters. He saw that people clung desperately to their possessions, their reputations, their ambitions, mistaking them for life itself. But the more they held on, the heavier they became. The more they owned, the more they were owned. The more they achieved, the more they feared losing it all. And so, they spent their lives protecting things that, in the end, could never protect them. But loss is inevitable. No matter how hard we try to secure our place in the world, time will strip us of everything we cling to. Youth fades, careers end, even the greatest empires crumble. And yet, instead of accepting this, we fight against it, exhausting ourselves in a battle we cannot win. But what if, instead of resisting loss, we embraced it? Not as a tragedy, but as a teacher. Not as a failure, but as a gateway to freedom. Think about the moments in your life when you have truly grown. Were they the times when everything was going according to plan? Or were they the moments when things fell apart, when you were forced to let go, when life stripped away everything you thought you needed? Often it is only in losing that we gain clarity, only in surrendering that we find something real. Because when we stop gripping so tightly to the things we believe define us, we begin to see who we are underneath it all. Thoreau's great experiment at Walden Pond was not just about living simply. It was about learning how to lose. He let go of comfort, let go of ambition, let go of the expectations that society had placed upon him. And in doing so, he discovered something extraordinary, that when you no longer fear losing, you become truly free. Free to think, free to feel, free to experience life without the constant burden of needing to prove yourself. But here's the paradox when you embrace loss. You don't actually lose anything of real value. You lose illusions. You lose attachments to things that were never truly yours. You lose the weight of expectations that were never meant to define you. And what remains? Lightness, presence, the ability to engage with life fully, without the fear of failing, because you have already let go of the need to win. Look at the people who live with the most joy. They are not the ones who have conquered life, who have secured the perfect job, the perfect house, the perfect image. They are the ones who have learned to dance with uncertainty, who have accepted impermanence, who see life not as a series of achievements, but as a series of fleeting, beautiful moments to be experienced, then released. Imagine for a moment what your life would feel like if you no longer feared losing, if you no longer needed to impress, if you no longer measured your worth by external success. Would you live differently? Would you take more risks? Would you spend more time doing what you love, rather than what is expected of you? Would you finally breathe? This is what Thoreau was trying to show us. That happiness is not the result of winning. It is the result of releasing the need to win in the first place. It is found not in the relentless pursuit of more, but in the deep appreciation of what is already here. It is not a prize to be earned, but a state of being that has always been available, if only we have the courage to stop running long enough to notice it. So the final question is this: what are you holding on to that is keeping you from being free? What illusions, what fears, what desperate need for validation is standing between you and the life you truly want? And what would happen if, for the first time, you simply let it go? Because in the end, the greatest victory is not in winning, but in realizing that you never needed to win at all.